Ralph from Happy Dog Training, and welcome to another episode of Dog Talk. Today, I have a special treat for you because we're going to talk about separation anxiety. And that is probably the number one request of training that I get. I think it's similar for many other dog trainers. So I want to give you two specific things that I would suggest you try when you're dealing with separation anxiety with your dog, and I'm going to outline them in detail. One of them is from Mark Goldberg. It is the straw method of Mark Goldberg. I'm going to describe it. I will link to Mark Goldberg's document on that. He's a dog trainer from Chicago. He also wrote a book with the Monks of the New Skeet about several dog training books, Let Dogs Be Dogs, and some others. Good books. And the other one is a YouTube video also from Mark Goldberg on the straw method. So I'm going to describe the straw method and how I'm using that. That's been a good, successful thing, but I didn't invent that. So full credit to Mark. And in his book, there's a full description, even I think in the video, how he discovered the whole thing, how he came up with this. But it works great, so I want to discuss that. And the other thing is a specific strategy that I generally recommend to all my clients in dealing with separation anxiety. And I recommend you try that as well. And those two things can make a really big difference in dealing with the separation anxiety of your dog if you have that problem. There's obviously other things that can be done. There is training, there's board and train programs like the ones we have at our Confidence Builder. There's other things that your dog may need if it's a tough case. But these are things worth trying, and they can make a difference. So take notes, and I will give you a lot of details on how to go about these things. And again, for the straw method, there's also a video and a full write-up for Mark that has all the details of that in there as well. He's very detailed. He shared that openly a long time ago. So this is public. It's been in the public for quite a while. But I will put that also in the show notes so you can easily find it. Okay, so let's start with what separation anxiety really is. Separation anxiety is a dog having a genuine concern that you will not come back. That's it. Your dog does not trust that you will come back. They think you will abandon them, you will leave, you will not come home. They just don't trust that you're going to be back. So they want to not be left behind. And that's obviously an emotional imbalance that is not a healthy thing per se. Right? This is not normal. It is not that your dog loves you more because he doesn't want to leave your side. This is not a German Shepherd who will follow you around because that's what Shepherds do. They bond to a person and they just follow you everywhere. They're called Velcro dogs for a reason. They can still have separation anxiety on top of that, but the following around you, that's not an indication of that. That's what you would expect them to do. But if they then eat all the moldings off the windows when you leave the house, well, that would be separation anxiety, right? Or destroy something else or trying to break out the window to follow you. So that would be more separation anxiety aspect. Following you around in a home would not be. That would be typical for a German Shepherd per se, and some other dog breeds are like that too. So, but your dog really thinks you're not going to be back. I mean, that's an important thing to understand. He's not loving you more than a dog who just like accepts that you're going to be back. Not at all. It's like, I think my friend Chad Mackin, who also did two wonderful podcasts on separation anxiety, which I also will link to, by the way. I'll get more to that at the end. He mentioned that in one of his episodes that it's kind of like compared to a romantic relationship partner who constantly monitors you and like constantly texts you and constantly, it's not that person cares more about you. They're just insecure about their feelings. They're insecure about your relationship. They're fundamentally disordered about the relationship that you have. And this is the same with the dog with separation anxiety. There's a fundamental problem in understanding of how it's supposed to be. It's not a demonstration of particular love or affection. It's just psychologically unhealthy. So, okay. So that's kind of what that is. But how do we fix it? Okay. So I'm going to start with the process I generally recommend, and then I get back to the straw method because it's only part of it if you need it. You may not need it depending on how your dog responds to a crate. But so let's see if that's for the second part, because it's not going to apply to everybody with separation anxiety. But the first part does. So here's what I recommend you do. Okay, so you start establishing with your dog minutes initially, and then you expand out from that, time frames where he needs to learn to be by himself. So how do you do that? So pick a time of day or pick a signal or something. Let's say whatever works for your family. Let's say it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's home, or everybody comes home, or kind of like everybody's around. And for 5 minutes, 2 o'clock to 2:05, pretend you have no dog. Do not talk to your dog. Do not acknowledge your dog. Do not reflexively pet your dog when he brushes up against you. Ignore him. Just ignore him. Do absolutely nothing. He jumps on you, turn around, walk away. I normally don't recommend that if you want to fix jumping up, but in this context, just for 5 minutes, nobody acknowledges the existence of your dog. Pretend he isn't there. 5 minutes, that's it. 5 minutes, the first day. And he will be confused, and he will try to pester, and he will try to get your attention. Ignore all of that. If he does things that are dangerous, if he does things that are not acceptable, then you have to deal with that. Well, that would be a different conversation. Hire a trainer, it gets complicated. But let's just say he does things that you can ignore. Right? That's the more common thing again. But 5 minutes every day. And you can do it initially at the same time. So it becomes a little bit more predictable for your dog. It can make it easier for your dog to start accepting it if it happens at the same time. And you keep it at 5 minutes until your dog accepts it. Meaning he doesn't bother anybody. He just lies down somewhere. You're just like, okay. They do their 5-minute thing. It's weird, but I get it. So until he stops paying attention to it and just ignores it, just keep to that routine, 5 minutes. Next thing, after that's happened, you vary those 5 minutes. And you just do that for a couple of days. The first 5 minutes, it's going to take as long as it's going to take. Depends on your dog. Maybe it's a week. Maybe it's 2 days. Maybe it's a month. Every dog's going to be different in that regard, but that's how you start with. And then you're going to vary the time frame. So let's say it was always 2 to 2:05. Now it's at different times of the day. And just do that until he again settles down to, oh, okay, they're doing the weird thing. 5 minutes, I'll leave them alone. If they leave me alone, I'm not going to get anywhere. So if we get faster, the first round is going to be the toughest in that regard. The first of all the new things I'm going to describe, the first round's always going to be the longest until the dog understands, oh, okay, that's how it's going to go. So once you have the 5 minutes randomly solid, you can do multiple 5 minutes a day, maybe 2-3 times for a couple of days until he's like, oh, okay, now we're doing it multiple times. And then you go back to once a day, but now it's longer. So try 10 minutes. See how that goes. That should go pretty quickly. So at this point, he's probably gotten used to the idea that he will be ignored sometimes, so maybe 10 minutes is not a big deal. Maybe even just one day can be enough, 10 minutes to see what he does. If he's a little unsettled at the end of the 10 minutes, well, give it maybe 2-3 days until he gets, 10 minutes, okay. I mean, he's not keeping time himself. It's just like how he feels about the time frame, right? And then you go to 15 minutes. And then from 15 minutes, maybe 25 or 30 minutes, try that. Right? Everybody ignores the dog for 30 minutes. Hope that makes sense so far. So 5 minutes fixed time, 5 minutes variable time, multiple 5 minutes throughout the day. Then go back to once a day, 10 minutes, couple of days until that's solid, then 15 or 20 minutes, and then 25 or 30 minutes. So once your dog's okay with all of that, and your dog's been loose the whole time, now we're going to change that up a little bit. Now we're going to restrain your dog. And initially we're going to restrain him with a leash. So you take a leash and put it on him, and you clip that leash to a piece of furniture or a door or something he cannot get rid of. And if he will chew through the leash, get one of those They have these steel cables covered with nylon. They're nice. You can even go to Home Depot and have them just make you one, but you can buy them. They're called virtually indestructible leashes. I think they're on Amazon even. But virtually indestructible. They're steel cable leashes, so the dog can't chew through. And just make it 6 feet and tie him to something. So now he's stationary in one room, or somewhat stationary. He can't get out of it. And now he has to also stay in a place, somewhat. Don't do that in another room. Do it in the area you're going to be in. So time it out when maybe you make dinner and you clip him in the living room so he can see you, but he can't come. So now you're creating some distance between the two of you. That's kind of the point of that. Distance without a crate at this point. So you're creating a distance between the two, between you and your dog, for 5 minutes while he can see you. Yeah? Again, you keep going with that until he gets comfortable and settles just down, just rests. And like, okay. And then go up in time. Work your way back up to the 20, 30 minutes, same way you did with the initial one. Then we're going to move him into a crate. And now you don't necessarily need to use a crate for that, but for most people, A, have a crate, and B, it's going to be useful when you leave and for other things, and it's also useful if your dog has destructive tendencies when you leave. So it's technically you don't need a crate for the next step, but if you have one and your dog is crate trained, it's probably the better way to go. It makes some things easier. We're not talking like long-term forever. We're talking about a separation anxiety training process here. So if you generally don't want your dog to be in a crate long-term, that's fine. Nobody's suggesting that. If your dog's not destructive and behaves himself in the home, you don't need a crate. But for this training process, it can be helpful. Right? But we're going to move him now to another room. And the door of the room will be open, but he no longer can see us. He can hear us, but he can't see us. And we'll go back to 5 minutes once a day, and then we again go through this process that we just described for the first one. So 5 minutes multiple times, vary the time, and then multiple times, and then 10 minutes, 15, 20, 25, and so forth. Same process. But now he can't see us. He can hear us, but he can't see us. And we do that again until he settles completely down, is completely at ease with it, doesn't care, doesn't mind. And then we're going to close the door. Now he can't hear us either. Or we move him further away, so now we're in the house, he knows we're there, but hearing and seeing is even more diminished. But we're still there, we haven't left at all. Right? And again, we started once 5 minutes a day and then work our way back up. And then the time comes where we put him in his room or his crate, or tie-up is not good if you leave. So it's either be like in a room where he's loose and he's comfortable, maybe he has his own room where he stays in the bathroom, or he stays in the bedroom, or in his kennel, in his crate, whatever you're doing. And that's where the straw can come in, but I'll get back to that. And now we're going to leave, but not when we actually have to leave. We're going to leave for 5 minutes, and we're going to monitor him. Use FaceTime, use Duo if you have Android, use a baby monitor, use any kind of monitoring device, home camera device, security camera in the home, whatever. I think everybody at this point has one everywhere. It's cheap. So put that up where he is so you can watch him. And then you actually leave for 5 minutes, sit in your car, play a game on your phone, drink a coffee, have a conversation, whatever. But you leave the house for 5 minutes. Come back in. When you walk in, putt around for a minute, go get your dog, go play with him. So that's actually, I forgot to mention that earlier. After this is always done, you go play with your dog. So after those 5 minutes are over, or 30 minutes are over, or the tie-up is over, you go play with your dog. So always go play with your dog after all of this is done. So there has to be something. You can play a food game, you can play with toys, but he gets the attention. That's basically the aftermath of all of this. So I should have said that in the beginning. But if you're still listening, then you know we're only like 15 minutes in or so. So it always ends with play. And then we're going to expand the time to leaving 10 minutes, leaving 15 minutes, leaving 30 minutes. Right? And so at that point, you're probably getting to the point where it's going to be okay. But that is how you build it up into your dog learns to be okay with your absence. And he knows you always come back. And he learns that after you come back, we're going to have a good time. So all of these things are important aspects of that. And initially, obviously, we're just getting used to being ignored, then we're getting used to spatial separation, then we get used to visual separation, then we get used to auditory separation, then we get used to like they're actually gone, but they come right back. So as you can see from this process, this isn't quick. This is not something that just happens on a weekend. This requires people to be in the home to do. This is a hard thing to deal with. So if a dog has separation anxiety and you can't deal with it, that is difficult. If you all go to work every day and to school and nobody is home and the dog's destructive, you have a problem. Right? So it's not easy to fix this way. That's when crates come in, breakout-proof crates and anxiety crates and things like that. There's like impact dog crates makes an anxiety crate where dogs really per se can't hurt themselves very easily in. The bars and everything is spaced out that their teeth don't go in well and their claws don't go in so they can't rip them and break them. So they're interesting constructions. I have a couple in my boarding room. They're great crates, they're very sturdy. But that's a containment operation. That is not making the dog better. That is just protecting him from hurting himself or herself, which sometimes is necessary. I mean, I have clients where the dog just like destroys everything, just hurts himself doing it, and it's difficult to deal with. And if you wait a long time to hire a trainer, and I will tell you this is the process you got to follow, it's like this takes too long. Well, yeah, it takes long, no doubt about it. This is not quick at all. So one thing that can help if you're really just always gone, and maybe if you're always gone, you have a dog with separation anxiety, that would be a scenario where maybe rehoming him to a family member or a friend is something worth considering, because it's probably not fair to your dog if you don't have the time to help him with this. But these are personal choices, so you have to decide what's right for you there. Board and train programs can help, where a trainer takes on the burden of this, and now you have separation from you, and there's a completely new environment that can be helpful with this, right? It doesn't necessarily eliminate the problem completely for you. You may still have to do something when he comes back from a board and train process. But if it's like in our case, we have 6 to 8 weeks in our confidence builder, which would be the separation anxiety program. But that's a decent amount of time for a dog to change in that regard. There will obviously be other things happening. It won't be just this process I just described for him. It will be actually a lot of other things that we do in our training program that we're not discussing today. But these are options to consider if you're dealing with separation anxiety. So I hope that makes sense. And let's talk about the straw method by Mark Goldberg that can come helpfully in here. It can come in helpfully with the crate part of this. So you have to use straw to make this work. That's the first thing. Do not get hay or anything else, or like wood chips. No, straw. So straw has a couple of advantages. It doesn't absorb liquid that easily. So if a dog happens to pee in a crate, it's also great for puppy training, by the way, for housebreaking. We use this a lot. I've helped dogs with diarrhea with this. I help dogs with pee a lot in the crate, and not because they're sick or they're too young, but just like never learned. So it's great for housebreaking as well. So what I'm going to describe here is a great housebreaking tool. But it helps wonderfully with separation anxiety. So you put straw in that crate, and you don't just put a little bit of straw in that crate. So you basically fill that crate, whatever the crate is, half up with straw. So it's this crate like half up with straw. And you press it down, and the dog lies down and presses it down more. But it creates a nice nesting sensation when the dog lies down and they feel a little embraced. It's kind of like it speaks to the nesting instinct. I mean, they're denning animals. That's what they do when they're with the mom, creates a bedding for them, right? And they cuddle all up together. So in a pack. So that's probably the reason this works. But it has a calming effect on dogs. It just makes them feel better to be in a crate when there's straw in there. It just like settles their mind down. They calm down faster. They don't eat the straw. It's very uncommon for a dog to eat the straw. I've seen it happen, but it's not a common thing. That was usually a dog that was super nervous about other things, who munched around on it a bit, but not much either. And it is digestible. It's not a big problem if a dog eats some straw. But it's not that common. With like wood chips and with hay, they may eat that way more than you want them to. So that's not a good thing. So you don't want that. So use straw. You put that in a crate, and I recommend you get a hard shell crate. So like a hard shell plastic crate. PetMate is one of those makers, but there are also these airline cargo crates they make. They're nice. You can even put a shepherd in there. They're big things. Very, very sturdy, hard shell plastic. They're wonderful because they have obviously holes and openings for breathing more on the top side, but the bottom is enclosed, so it keeps the straw in better. Because this is a messy operation, so you don't want to do this on carpet or your living room. You want to do this on tile, or even in the garage, because it's going to come out. Straw is going to go out, and it's going to be messy, and you'll have to replace it. So you get straw. Cheapest way to get straw, a big bale of straw at a feeding place. So what I do, I usually go to a feed store. I buy one bale of straw, fits nicely in the back of an SUV. And when I come home, I break it into their pieces and I put it into large storage bins. And it fills up like 4 large storage bins for one bale of straw, but it'll last a while. And then one of those pieces that comes off this, like this kind of big, if you watch the video version of this, right? And it's like I don't know, 3 feet by 1.5 feet or so, kind of pieces. And yeah, tear this all up, make it all loose, fluff it all out, and put it in the bottom of the crate. And I change it out once a week. And if I have a dog that is may have accidents, I will put some potty pads under the straw in a way that they can't see it. They may still rip it out, but it kind of helps with absorbing any kind of urine that runs through, because the straw itself will not absorb the liquid. So it just runs through the straw and it won't get soaked, which also keeps the dog clean when you have a urinator. Can be great when a dog is dealing with urinary tract infections as well, while you're going through this and waiting for the medication to kick in. So straw has a lot of benefits with elimination of dogs that eliminate in crates, and never housebroken, or you need to housebreak the puppy or something like that. So there's lots of benefits to that. It's definitely worth looking the straw method. But as I recall this right, it was initially, when Mark did it and described it, was for a dog that was just screaming his head off in a crate and with separation anxiety. And that was ultimately the solution. It didn't start off with straw. He started off with like little balls of newspaper. It's an interesting story. Read it yourself. And buy his book. It's described in Let Dogs Be Dogs. It's a good book. Lots of good tips for dogs owners in there in general, about consistency, about creating patterns, about how to deal with the basics of living with a dog that has some behaviors you'd rather not have. So there's some good tips in there. And if you have a more complex issue, you'll probably need to hire a trainer. But some of the basic stuff, it's a great book. I read the book. There's definitely some good advice in there. And some detailed steps for a lot of things. So I recommend that to dog owners generally. If you want to get a dog book, that's not a bad one. That's a good one. So that's the plug for Mark and the straw method. He deserves it. Straw method is worth gold. So, but yes, straw for a dog with separation anxiety can be super calming. It can make the whole crate experience better. It can keep him calmer in the crate. And you can add other things, right? You can have enrichment items and so on. I'll get back to that. But there's other things you can put in the crate. But the straw is a key component to keep a dog and help a dog to calm down, be calmer, and just settle in better. So that is something I would strongly suggest if your dog has any kind of trouble in the crate. If he doesn't have trouble in the crate and he doesn't soil anything, he's housebroken, he's all clean, and just like he whines and is anxious, separation anxiety wise, but he's not doing any of destructive stuff. Straw is messy, so you probably don't want to do that. But it's worth dealing with the messiness if it's a more severe case, because it won't take long. Give it a month or so and you can phase the straw out. You slowly get rid of it, right? You take a handful out every day or something like that. Within a week or two, after 6 weeks, you're basically no straw anymore, and the dog will be okay. But it's messy, but it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. So I've done this with a lot of dogs over the years, and I love the straw method. It's been great. It's been keeping my own sanity in check, and certainly helped a good number of dogs just be less stressed out about things. It's a good approach. Okay. So that was the first process about how I approach separation anxiety, with gradual introduction of being ignored and being separated and so forth, and then the straw method to help with the crate part of this. So you have some detailed tips now on how to deal with separation anxiety. So let me give you a couple of other tips and resources. On our website, under the section free training, there is an article on separation anxiety. And that article is based on 2 podcasts by my friend Chad Mackin, who outlined 12 things you can do for separation anxiety. And he collected those also from multiple dog trainers around the world. So there's a wealth of knowledge of suggestion on how to manage the process of leaving, how to manage the process of coming home, what else to give a dog in the crate, changing the pattern for your dog to detect when you're leaving and coming, and how to respond to that. So it's really a detailed outline. And at the bottom, there's also the podcasts of Chad. The podcast is called Something to Bark About. There's 2 episodes on separation anxiety. And I recommend you listen to those as well. In those 12 tips, he also mentions the straw method from Mark, because it's well known and it is a very effective process. So it's in there as well, and it also has links to the video and the document in that post as well. So this video will also be sitting at the bottom of the separation anxiety page, because that's where it belongs. But what I described here is what I usually tell my clients, how I go about it. Those are the things that I've been most successful with. That doesn't mean that the other things aren't valuable. They're very valuable. And you should try them if you run into any other challenges or you think this may help your dog or it may apply to the situation. Because it's always going to vary by dog. I'm also going to link to the Impact Dog Crate anxiety crates that I mentioned, because they can be a helpful tool. And hopefully you don't have to go that route, because they're not that cheap. But they're worth having when you have a dog with separation anxiety. And they're wonderful crates in general. They're very nice looking pieces of equipment, but they're not cheap, unfortunately. Not prohibitively expensive, just not. It's beyond the standard wire crates you're used to from Petco, right, and PetSmart. So, but that's it on separation anxiety. And these are helpful. These are tips that really work well. So we have a lot of success with personally and also with our clients. So I suggest you try them. Listen to this podcast again, go through the steps, write them down to notes. At some point I may write them out and post them as well. But for now, they're just going to be in this podcast, and on the page they're listed as a small paragraph with a high-level description, but this podcast has all the details on how to do it. So I wish you best of luck dealing with your dog with separation anxiety. I hope this is helpful. I hope this makes a difference. And let us know how it worked out for you, good or bad. Let us know what worked for you, what didn't work for you, if you tried it, what your experiences were. If we'll get a bunch of stories in, we can do an episode, just talk about that. I may invite someone on the podcast. I will start having guests, and we may do a guest interview or a Zoom call, a group interview on separation anxiety and what worked for people. So separation anxiety is something that a lot of dog owners struggle with. It is something that always everybody can always use some help with. And I hope that I can help a good number of people through this venue dealing with separation anxiety in their dogs. So I hope this is helpful to you. You got something out of it, and it will make a difference to your dog's well-being. I will see you next time. Bye.